Question number 19 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 5. Which choice best states the relationship between the two passages? Passage 2 illustrates the so let's remember what the different passages were about. Passage 1 was Catherine Beecher, and what does she say? She says women hold a subordinate relation in society to men. It is not that her influence is any less important, because a man acts in society by collision of intellect, public debate, by fear, personal interest, but women are not allowed to do that. Women do things differently. They win, line 22, women win everything by peace and love, by making herself so much respected, etc. So, the fathers, the husbands, the sons will find influence thrown around them, which they will yield not willingly but proudly. And so she's saying through women's sphere of influence, that will change the world. And finally, Beecher comes to the last sentence by saying, if everything that I just said is true and you believe it, then women have no role to play in the struggle of abolitionism. That's what Catherine Beecher says. And recall, Grimke is passage 2. She encouraged Southern women to oppose slavery publicly, unlike Catherine Beecher. And realize passage 2 is Grimke's response to Beecher. So this is, and Grimke pretty much says passage 1, or Catherine Beecher, is wrong. That regardless of your gender or your race, everyone has the same human rights, and therefore everyone should say what they feel or what they believe should happen in the future, what should change. And that is what is, and she ultimately says, Grimke, my 81, my moral doctrine then is whatever is morally right for man to do, it is morally right for women to do. And that's, in a nutshell, what she believes. So, which choice best states the relation between the two passages? Passage 2 illustrates the practical difficulties of a proposal. Does Grimke say, well, Catherine Beecher, your ideas make sense and I like them, however, they're kind of impractical. It's kind of hard to implement them. It's kind of hard to say that this is going to work. There are no practical difficulties. It's like someone proposes an idea and then the other person's like, yeah, that's great, but it's really hard to do that. She's actually arguing the opposite. It's actually easier to just sit there and do nothing, like Catherine Beecher is saying. And I would argue that passage 2 is more practically difficult and historically was more difficult to achieve than just sitting and doing nothing, which is always the case. So the practical difficulties, passage 2 never argues that. She never says like, yeah, this is practically infeasible, I'm not liking it. What about B? Passage 2 takes issue with the primary argument in passage 1. Yes, it does. Passage 2 says that passage 1's argument makes no sense. Passage 2, Grimke believes that Catherine Beecher is wrong. Catherine Beecher believes that what is right for man to do is not right for women to do, and vice versa. And Catherine Beecher says what is right for man to do is what is right for women to do. So I like B. Passage 2, C, provides a historical context for the perspective offered in passage 1. It's not a historical context. That makes no sense. We never talk about history once, unless we talk about human beings have rights and all that kind of stuff. This preamble of who has rights. No, there's no historical context, especially passage 2 was written later than passage 1. No. The passage 2 elaborates upon several ideas implied in passage 1. This is like a good smart answer. This is like the one that you settle on. You get confused for all these and you don't remember what's going on and you pick D. It's not right. Passage 2 elaborates upon several ideas implied in passage 1. There's no implied anything in passage 1. Beecher says that women are inferior to men and women hold a different way of exerting influence than men do. And there's nothing implied about that. That's stated as a fact in Catherine Beecher's essay. And Grimke says, no, you're wrong. That's not true. What is right for a man to do is right for a woman to do. So it's not, passage 2 is not elaborating or expanding upon several ideas. It's the only thing that passage 1 says, and it's the only thing in reality that passage 2 is rebutting. So it's not going to be D either. The answer to number 19 is going to be B. Grimke takes issue with what Beecher has to say, and she says it pretty clearly, because their arguments don't even overlap in any way. Beecher believes that slavery should not be in the realm of a woman's sphere. Grimke says that it should, in the blurb as well as in her defense of the rights of humans. The answer number 19 is going to be B.